AMC stock actually held a rally into the end of the day. This is quite spectacular. AMC stock closed the day up about 9%, down about half of 1% in after hours. AMC stock started rallying and basically did not look back throughout the entire day. Sure, there was ups and downs, but this is really a good sign. And this could be the start of something great for AMC. So I want to break that down for you here in this video, what my expectations are for AMC. I want to talk about the data coming out tomorrow and how that could also affect the markets either in a really good or really bad way. I hope you're ready. If you are an investor in AMC, we need a roll call. We need a artificial and or ghetto call on shareholders, or a shareholder vote. Let's call it that. Hit the like button if you are an investor in AMC stock. So number one, ladies and gentlemen, that's the thing that I want to point out is typically we have not seen AMC really hold these rallies into the end of the day. It's not uncommon to rally in the beginning of the day, and it's really common to see AMC stock just sell off into the close. So let's actually start this video off with what CPI was today and the data coming out tomorrow, because I think that is the next biggest thing that we can obviously sit here and forecast that will have an effect on the markets, that will have an effect on AMC. It could be good, it could be bad, and I'll let you know here in this video what my expectations are. So inflation today, as I expected, came in at 0.3% month over month for August. I expected this. Now, we have fallen recently the past couple of weeks, so I think the markets were kind of conditioned for this, and this did not, to my surprise, move the expectations for rate hikes all too much. For September, there's a 2% chance of a rate hike. It's not going to happen, okay? The next Fed meeting is going to be 1 week and 1 hour away. I believe it's going to be, next Thursday is the next Fed meeting. So we're not going to get a rate hike in September. That's pretty obvious. Now, for November, the odds of a rate hike went from 38.5% yesterday to 42.6% today. And the odds for a rate hike in December went from 39.7% to 43.5% chance. So the odds for a rate hike went up for November and December, but not as much as I expected they could have. So that was interesting, and that's basically it as far as the inflation data. Your month over month reading came in as expected. Your year over year reading came in a little bit hotter, but it's really those base effects starting to wear off and not having that same kind of pull down as you have seen via those base effects on the year over year basis. So nothing too surprising here. Core inflation came in 4.3% year over year, in line with what you were expecting. So not a great report, but I think the markets are looking at this and saying, hey, it could have been a lot worse. Now, retail sales, that's where we could have a problem. So we're going to get PPI as well, but I think that the big one is going to be retail sales. We've heard from the Fed Beige Book recently. We've heard from companies that costs are going up and companies are having a hard time passing on the cost. So we're expecting 0.4% PPI month over month. That's probably what we're going to come in as. Now, retail sales month over month, you're expecting 0.2%, almost negative. Your month over month retail sales for the month of July had came in at 0.7%. That annualized is over 8% for the year. Now, 0.2% annualized is 2.4%. That is not as great. Now, why this is specifically important, retail sales. Well, your GDP estimates, and I've talked about this before in other videos, but I'm going to say it again because it's something that is paramount to understand. Your GDP expectations for the Atlanta Fed currently are 5.6% for Q3. Your blue chip consensus estimates for GDP, aka just the markets themselves, at 2.4% for this this current quarter. Now, your expectations 1 month ago was around 1%. Why these expectations are so high now is simply because your retail sales numbers and some of your consumer spending numbers came in really good for the month of July, better than expectations. So if retail sales come in bad tomorrow, if they are negative, and they could be quite negative in my opinion, maybe 0.5%, maybe 1 or 2% negative, that's a possibility. That would affect your GDP estimates. That would essentially say, hey, a recession is maybe a lot closer than what the markets were thinking. And that could have a very much negative effect on the markets. Now, if retail sales come in better than 0.2%, I think the markets will rejoice that and have a very strong day coming tomorrow. So I think retail sales are really the big numbers you want to be watching, as well as the ECB press release. The European Central Bank, if they raise rates or not, could obviously be very important to our markets and could move things quite a bit. And then tomorrow at night at 10 p.m., you're going to get industrial production, retail sales, unemployment rate, things of that nature. So you are going to have some pretty big data coming out tomorrow. I think tomorrow is really the big day. Now, even tonight, you are going to get machinery orders year over year, machinery orders month over month, foreign bond investments out of Japan, industrial production, as well as capacity utilization for Japan, and a 20-year Japanese bond auction. So some of this data could move kind of the futures tonight. It could move overnight trading in specific stocks that do trade overnight. So that's something I will be watching for as well heading into tomorrow. Now, as far as AMC stock itself, as you guys already know, it's been pretty rough the last couple of weeks, and the exchange reported short interest just came out, and it looks like the short interest of free float did disappoint, and that really has to do with the float itself now being much larger than it previously was. After these 40 million shares got diluted out into the markets, it just takes down the short percentage of the float. But the amount of shares that is sold short did skyrocket. So the theory was correct. Maybe the fact that we did not account for the dilution, I didn't think the dilution would show up in this reported period from August 15th through August 21st, but it looks like it did. So we were right on the fact that there was a lot of new short positions taken. Short positions themselves, or the amount of shares that are short, are at all-time highs. That went up almost 36% from the last reading, so we were correct there. And by far the biggest jump in short interest we have seen in a very long time, or shorted shares. But the float is just bigger now, so it's not as high. So this is a very interesting way to kind of look at it. Now, you can look at it as the short interest of free float, or you can look at it as the amount of shares that are sold short. I think the amount of shares sold short is more important, as long as you don't continuously see more and more dilution. If you see more dilution, if AMC were to sell 100 million more shares, well, the 23 million shares sold short is going to be a small amount relative. This is actually quite a large amount of shares that are sold short in AMC. You can see just the numbers we've seen in 2022 on this equivalent basis was 11.5 million, 12 million shares sold short. Today you're at 23.2 million shares sold short. So it's very high. And I do think that makes us very much squeezable if there is a reason for the stock to go higher. Maybe it's good news tomorrow, or even potentially bad news tomorrow. If you get that adverse, kind of reaction to the markets, that could be very good for AMC stock. Now, a couple things I want to talk about on the technicals after we run through this data. So the short score recently went from 70 to 73, so that is good. About 200 million worth of short positions currently on AMC stock. Short interest of free float, like I said, 16.74%. Free float out on loan at 19.19%. Shares out on loan 30.27 million. Days to cover 2.83. Cost to borrow 7.44, utilization of about 77. If we take a look at the cost to borrow fees currently, about 4.5% on Interactive Brokers. Cost to borrow max over here at about 9%. Cost to borrow average 6.72%. Cost to borrow minimum 0.59%. So higher than where we have been, but not nearly as high as where we have been over the past couple of months, right? A lot lower in that regard, guys. So I do expect the cost of borrow fees to continue to rise, as I do expect the short interest of free float to also rise, as long as, again, we do not continue to see more and more dilution. Now, something that I also covered in the last video, is the Google search trend data is very high for AMC. It just went up over 1,000%. That could mean more people looking to invest in AMC, or just the business itself is drawing a lot more searches and a lot more activity. A lot of it would probably have to do with the Taylor Swift concert that is being exclusively distributed through AMC. Now, so I do think that is bullish, and I think now that the court proceeding is basically done, you can move a lot more on good or bad news. If AMC gets really good news on a given day, I think it'll affect the stock a lot more than it did over the past 6, 7, 8 months, 9 months or so, ever since this court situation has been ongoing, just because you don't have that court overhang over the stock. It's done at that point, right? It's done. The courts are not making any more final rulings. There's nothing they can do. It's already happened. Okay, so keep that in mind if we do get good or bad news. Now, with the option activity, there's a lot of option activity on both sides. There's a little bit more on the put side, as there typically is, but even on the call side, there's a lot. So you have 85,000 calls currently in the money, 172,000 calls out the money. In the money puts at 116,000, out the money puts at 284,000. So a lot of option activity just across the board. And I would expect into the end of this week, you can probably see some pretty big moves in AMC stock. It wouldn't surprise me if the options are helping to fuel that. And as far as the FTDs, you still have, like I said, about 4.5 million FTDs that do need to come due. And still need to be closed out if that's very anti-dilutive, as you guys might already know. Now, the thing that I really wanted to talk about with AMC stock, number one, is the MACD. The MACD just crossed over, so the yellow line just crossed above the blue line. That is typically a very good sign for any stock, and for AMC stock right now, considering the fall that we have seen, even where the average analyst price targets are of $21 and some change, you're at $8.20 per share right now. There is a lot of room for an upside move here. And the MACD, we've been talking about this for days now, started to bottom out and actually curl up. And now that you're getting this crossover, that tends to be a very good sign that, you know, an even larger rally could be to come. Before any bullish rally, you get a crossover in the MACD. And this actually happened while AMC stock was still red, was still actually falling. So it's a little bit more interesting now that actually happened when the stock was falling. And I do think that means an even larger move than maybe a lot of people are expecting. I still do think AMC stock could easily rally into the high teens, if not 20s, before you do start to get some, you know, kind of pressure from hedge funds kind of shorting, just overly shorting the stock once you get back into the mid-20s. So I do think there's a huge opportunity here from $8 to the mid-20s, and I think it could happen pretty quickly, to be honest with you guys. I think just within the course of a week or two, you could see a pretty dramatic move up to the teens, or the 20s ultimately. And I mean, it could go higher than that if shorts actually do get squeezed. If you do get good news on AMC stock, that's a whole different can of worms, or can of whoop ass, if you guys have ever seen The Water Boy. But nonetheless, the 8-day moving average is the big level you want to be watching for with AMC stock as of right now. That is at $9.23 per share. AMC stock has been respecting this basically perfectly ever since the reverse split went into effect, and even before that. So the 8-day moving average, if you break above that, could be some very good things to come ultimately. So that's the first thing I'm watching. That could break as soon as tomorrow if we get another strong day like we've seen today. I would expect that break could happen tomorrow. The RSI is also starting to curl up. You're still pretty oversold at 26.54, and that makes for perfect conditions for that oversold bounce, guys. So that's currently what I'm looking at. Volume has even been higher through the good and the bad days recently. Obviously, we've had more bad days than good days, but the volume has remained there, and it looks like there is still heavy interest in AMC stock. So keep all of this in mind. Again, tomorrow, retail sales, PPI data overnight from Japan, as well as the ECB coming tomorrow morning. Those are all going to be pretty big events for the markets and could affect AMC stock quite a bit. Obviously, depends if AMC follows the markets. If the markets fall, well, not so great for AMC. If AMC follows the markets and the markets rally, well, that would be pretty good for AMC. Or AMC could do the opposite. If the markets fall, AMC could rally. That also wouldn't surprise us. We've seen that happen plenty of times before. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and source your comments, questions, or concerns down below in the comment section. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.